What's up guys, Scott here from Icon Vehicle Dynamics, and we are back from the SEMA Show 2025 with our all-new, redone 2022 Toyota Tundra right behind me here. This is our booth vehicle this year at the SEMA Show, and if you followed Icon for any length of time, this is not the first time you've seen this truck. We've owned it since it was brand new back in 2021 and gone through all the different configurations of our suspension system to develop all these new products for the new gen platform. The last time you saw this truck, it was on our 6-inch lift performance suspension system. And after we were concluded with all the testing and filming and everything we wanted to do along with that kit, we were trying to decide what's next with the truck. Do we get rid of it? Do we get something else? But we all really liked the platform and wanted to take it to another level. So we tore it all apart, did a bunch of work in the weeks and days and long nights leading up to SEMA 2025. And we present to you the new version of our 2022 Tundra featuring an all new long travel suspension system front and rear, along with all the goodies from a lot of our build partners to help really round out the truck. This is the first time we've had a chance since we've been back from the show to go over everything in detail. So let's do a walk around and show you all the little nuances that went into this build and what makes it great. We are Icon, and so every great build is going to start right here in the wheel well with the suspension system. And up front, the big elephant in the room is the width. So this truck features an all new, first of its kind, 3.5-inch over long travel kit from Icon Vehicle Dynamics that features a billet aluminum upper control arm. These long travel billet upper control arms showcase the same features found on our stock width billet upper control arms. And that's everything from the Delta Joint Pro, which allow us to squeeze as much wheel travel out of the front of this thing as possible, down to our double adjuster system located at the frame pivot, which allows us to dial in the wheel alignment utilizing the upper control arm, as well as the factory adjustment on the lower control arm while it's all installed on the truck. Makes it super easy and nice to set up the wheel alignment in a very specific manner, which is honestly what we're going for this build. Down below is a fully fabricated boxed lower control arm, also of Icon Vehicle Dynamics design. And this guy is also wider to allow for the extra travel, but has a lot of new features built into it that we haven't released yet, part of the R&D process. And one of those is a new bushing system that is located inside the frame pivots on that lower control arm. We wanted to move away from polyurethane bushings or spherical bearings that are known to have wear issues and noise issues and stuff like that. So we've developed an all-new bushing system that we've actually been testing for several years now on different applications. And this is similar to a Johnny joint. You've got your central ball, a sleeve that goes through it, but it's held inside of a race, kind of like a spherical bearing. That's all greasable, rebuildable, replaceable, and is going to allow for full alignment settings through the lower control arm cams without introducing any bind into the suspension system. So you can max out your caster, for example, but without that bind from a typical bushing, you're able to have unrestricted movement of the suspension, which is great for off-road. You're not gonna have that chatteriness that you're gonna get from high friction sort of scenarios where the arms just don't wanna move. That product will be available on lots of other applications here shortly, but this is a perfect application to release it and show it to you. The outer ball joint on these lower control arms is the OE ball joint. There is no necessary need for a uniball or some type of high angle ball joint. We're able to get all 13 inches of wheel travel up front here with that factory unit. So we're gonna have noise-free operation and a long service life. To control all this wheel travel, we are utilizing a set of 3-inch diameter remote reservoir coilovers featuring CDEV. These big diameter coilovers feature the same position-sensitive technology you will find in all of our 3-inch coilovers, from the Ford Raptor to the production units for the Toyota Tundra, that are going to give you the internal bump zone and droop zones, so you have a ton of damping ability all inside the coilover. The remote reservoir is also a dual hose setup, which features our passive recirculating valve, which is going to pump hot oil from the main cylinder body into the reservoir to allow it to better cool, and then recirculate the cool oil back into the main body. So you're gonna have a much lower operating temperature than with a single hose. It's basically moving the same oil back and forth. Also living inside these big 3-inch diameter fin reservoirs is our CDEV, or compression damping electronic valve. This gives us active on-the-fly compression damping adjustment, so we can really control how the truck rides and performs. To multiply the damping ability of the front end, we've utilized a set of bolt-on secondary shock hoops and 3-inch diameter secondary bypasses. These are 3-tube bypasses with external adjustment, so you have independent adjustment of your compression and rebound throughout the different zones of the shock, so you can really set up the tuning very specifically to your liking and get all the characteristics out of it that you're after. In addition to that, the secondary shocks are also equipped with CDEV, which can be controlled independently from the primary coilover shocks here on the front of the Tundra. This is going to give you further adjustment to dial in that performance, as well as giving it more damping when you need it, because you can have, say, a nice and soft secondary shock most of the time when you're just cruising around town and you arguably don't need that much shock. But the moment that the terrain gets rough, that CDE valve is going to crank up the shock damping and really absorb those bumps. The front factory sway bar on the Tundras is pretty aggressive. On multiple builds, we've removed it completely and relied just on the shock absorbers for that sway control. But with this wide of a track width on the truck and sort of our intended overland-oriented use case of this vehicle, we wanted to maintain some sway bar in the front, but preferably at a softer spring rate than the factory unit. So we utilized a torsion-style sway bar and some custom-made billet sway bar arms here to join the sway bar to that lower control arm. This is going to give us a nice soft rate so that there is a bar there to help fight the body roll in corners, but it's free to move and get out of its own way so that the left and right side of the suspension can dance independently of one another without that yank or that transfer of energy from one side to the other as that big factory sway bar would tend to do. So it rides real nice and smooth, and we're excited how it came out. The combination of all these suspension parts and the 3.5-inch wider per side track width increase all equate to about 13 inches of front usable wheel travel with fully functional four-wheel drive thanks to our custom extended length axle shafts. With all the shiny stuff going on inside the wheel well, we wanted a wheel that would really stand out on its own. So we opted for our 18-inch Recon Pro wheels, which are our standard production wheel, but the standard black and charcoal colors didn't really fit the build motif. We wanted more pop, so to speak. So we had a set stripped down and chrome plated. That's right, chrome is back. I've always liked chrome or polished aluminum wheels, and that's kind of fallen out of favor the last few years, but it's coming back, and we're gonna do everything we can to make that a thing as well. Wrapped around these 18-inch Recon Pros is a set of 38 by 11.5-inch Nitto Ridge Grappler tires. We wanted to do the large diameter but a narrow width on this truck, so we have a larger contact patch without overburdening the truck with a lot of rolling resistance you see of a larger, wider tire. So this 11.5-inch width works out great for that. With these bigger tires on the truck, the factory brakes were a little less than stellar. So to help control this thing and slow her down better, we reached out to our friends at Wilwood Brakes, and this now features a set of custom slotted rotors and 6-piston calipers, adding a ton of braking force up front, and now it feels more like stock even with the larger tires on the truck. For the front of the truck, to maintain that pre-runner style build that we were going for, we removed our original plate bumper that was on the previous gen of the truck with the 6-inch lift, and instead fabricated this really nice, tight-fitting tube-style front bumper with an integrated aluminum skid plate that goes all the way back to help protect the engine and the drivetrain if you're smashing it through some whoops and stuff like that. And it gives us a really nice place to mount this set of KC Flex Arrows right up front here, cut and tucked inside the factory grille. We also went through and replaced a lot of the factory trim pieces up front that we had cut up for lots of different reasons, but now it's back to factory and looking nice and clean. And to better light the way, we swapped out the factory headlights for a set of AlphaRex headlights and fog lights here. So it looks super cool. There's a lot of cool features with these lights, and we like them a whole lot. So the rear suspension is actually way cooler than the front. Everyone always talks about long travel front suspension, but in reality, where you really want the wheel travel is in the rear. So what we're seeing back here is primarily all of the Icon production suspension components, being your links and your coil springs and stuff like that, but we have kind of piecemealed it together to allow for a lot more wheel travel. Basically, from the suspension geometry standpoint, we have our billet aluminum lower trailing arms. These are the production units that run on our 3-inch kit and everything. You can buy it today off of the website. So nothing super special down there, but on the upper link, we kind of got a little trick. Basically, one of the travel limiters on the Tundra is the fuel tank. So we made a special upper link on the passenger side to get around that fuel tank and allow for the extra droop travel. And this one, as you can see here, is first article. We got more refined versions of that coming, and this will be a production kit to some degree. For the coil spring, we paired our Gen 3 Raptor rear coils. These allow for a ton of wheel travel because the Raptor gets a ton of rear wheel travel. And actually the spring rates and the ride height have worked out perfectly for all we have going on in the bed. And so what you see is 16.5 inches of bolt-on wheel travel. We did extend the rear track bar a little bit to help limit that side-to-side movement. Just cut the factory bracket off the frame, relocated it further outboard, and made a longer version of our standard available track bar. Now, what always stands out the most in the rear, in order to get this much travel, are the shock absorbers that we paired with it. And in this case, we did something real special. We've got a whole new line of shocks coming this next year, which are going to be 3.5-inch diameter. And so this is a 16-inch travel, 3.5-inch diameter, 6-tube bypass that also features our dual hose remote reservoir technology with CDEV to match the front. So now we've got 16 inches of a gigantic shock absorber with 6 different zones to tune, all separately through the external bypass tubes. And these are all hand adjustable, by the way, no tools or anything required. And then you have the added adjustment on top of that from the CDEV in the reservoir that's going to be actively changing that shock damping on the fly based on what's happening in the truck. So we've got a ton of performance back here and a very nice and tight bolt-on package. The shock hoop here is all bolt-on as well. And the production kit will utilize more of a stock lower mount where we did all kinds of fab stuff here to make this giant shock absorber work. To help control the bottom mounts beyond what the shock absorber is capable of, we paired a set of 2.5-inch diameter bump stops that feature internal floating pistons. So they work more consistently and predictably than your standard emulsion style bump stops. We did retain the factory rear sway bar, just added some billet aluminum extended sway bar links here to help keep that thing from binding up with all this rear wheel travel. What good is all the suspension travel and taking it to the SEMA Show if we can't show it off the way we want to? To solve that problem, we partnered up with BendPak lifts, and they set us up with a portable scissor lift here that's been super handy in the shop. We wheel around all over the place for different builds. We take it to Las Vegas, set it up in the booth, take the truck up and down, allow it to stretch the legs, and as you can see what a truck with this much travel would look like, as it's flying through the air. And so we're really stoked with this lift. We can't say enough about it. We use it all the time, and it's been a great addition to the shop. Since we've increased the track width of the truck by 3.5 inches per side, we also needed wider fenders to keep those tires covered so we don't sling a bunch of mud and everything down the side of the truck. To achieve that, we partnered up with FiberwerX fiberglass, who provided this sweet set of fiberglass front fenders as well as the bedsides out back. This is going to match the width of the truck perfectly, and we tune the offset of the wheel so that it all tucks up inside. And then we sent the fiberglass over to the team at Customs by Lopez for this super clean paint job. We wanted to go a little less high profile than our normal corporate wrap that we do on a lot of the other trucks. And so we had them paint the fenders and the bedsides to match the factory paint, as well as give it the really nice piano black fender flares here for that factory sort of look. From a distance, if you don't know what you're looking at, it looks fairly stock, which is exactly what we were going for. Moving on up, to help light the way, we also have a set of KC Flex arrows on the A-pillar mounts. And these A-pillar mounts are provided by SDHQ. Super easy to bolt on, install, wired it all up. So we now got some nice ditch lights here on the A-pillar. And then to really cover the long distance lighting task, we have a set of KC Pro 6 light bar up front. This is mounted on the KC roof rack as well. This is a brand new product for them. It's super nice. Really solid install, and has these real nice work lights on the side that can be transitioned from white to amber light, which is gonna be super helpful out in the desert, when we're inevitably working on something in the middle of the night somewhere. Also, we have a lot more room for cargo up top. Nothing mounted on it right now, but we wanted to have the full range of cargo ability covered, so no matter what we need to bring with us on the trail, we've got a place to put it. In addition to the roof rack storage, we've got a whole lot going on in the bed with the truck cap, so let's show you what we got going on back there. To complement the fiberglass front fenders, we also have a set of FiberwerX rear bedsides here, also custom painted by Customs by Lopez, same piano black fender flare, and we even went to the little details and had the top of the bedsides painted with this matte finish to match the factory plastic bed, so it looks as factory as we possibly could here. It looks super cool. Bolted to the top of the bedsides is an Overland Vehicle Systems truck cap, which is super cool. Really impressed with the build quality of this guy. It's going to give us a ton of storage options for all of our gear, service stools, and chase equipment. Easy access from the rear or the side, it all folds up. Got the convenient Moly panels here so you can mount all kinds of extra accessories. Currently we've got it holding our max tracks, some more on the other side, and as well as up on front of the truck cap here. We don't have a whole lot of stuff hung up in here yet because we honestly haven't had time yet, but we're gonna add a whole lot more of accessories and tools to the back of this thing. So now we have a ton of storage capacity as well as safety to keep it all locked up when no one's around, so you don't have to worry about any of your stuff walking away. Speaking of tools and storage, Moving on back, we have this awesome new deck system featuring the cargo glide up on top. We've worked with deck for a long time. I'm a big fan of the products. These are heavy duty drawer systems that are built to handle a bunch of weight. In fact, we can hang off the back of this thing and it won't seem to flex a bit. So we're gonna load it up with tools and shock service stuff, as well as having a nice cargo glide here up on top for extra storage, mount a refrigerator up there, that sort of thing, and makes it nice and easy access where you don't, have to crawl inside of the truck cab if you don't want to. Coming full circle around the back of the truck here, we have our AlphaRex smoke taillights. Look super cool. Lots of cool features added into these as far as the way that the dynamics of the lights work. We have our custom icon rear bumper that maintains the full sensor functionality. So you've got the blind spot monitors here, fully function just like Toyota intended. All bolt on here. This is actually the same rear bumper that we incorporated with the truck in its last iteration with the 6-inch lift, with a little bit of modification done to stretch her out wider to match the FiberwerX fenders here. So with these larger tires on the truck, we wanted to do something to give her a little bit more horsepower. So we reached out to our friends at Magnuson Superchargers, and they sent us a Magnuson Performance package. This is the level 6, so it includes a whole slew of parts, starting with a low temp radiator in the front, a charge air cooler up on top of the engine here, replaces the stock one, as well as dual cold air intakes, an exhaust system, which sounds super sweet up underneath the truck, and an all new tune. The idea behind this package is to increase the volume of dense air going into the factory turbos, and the tune is unlocking more power now that it's been given all that extra airflow. This system should add about 85 horsepower and really help this thing get out of its own way and cancel out the loss in power that we were getting from the larger 38-inch tires with still stock gears in the truck. It sounds super cool. It is obviously a lot faster than it was in stock form, and you can't even tell it's got this big old rubber up underneath it. Some other stuff in here, as you can see, we have our Switch Pro system that's powering all of these KC lights around the truck, and that's mounted on the OPTIMA battery using an SDHQ Switch Pros mount. Makes a really nice, clean installation, super easy all to wire up. And then you can see over there on the passenger side, right inside the fender there, is the IIC, which is the brain for our electronic shock package. The IIC uses a 6-axis accelerometer as well as a digital gyroscope and an onboard algorithm to use the sensor inputs combined with that algorithm and your user settings to adjust the shock damping on the fly. So once you have it all set up the way that you like through the app, there's no need for that user interface anymore. You can put the phone away in your pocket and let the system take control and adjust the ride as it needs to level out those bumps and smooth out the ride. Icon has built a lot of SEMA vehicles over the years, and to be honest, we've had a tendency to focus on the exterior of the truck, doing the suspension and all the other necessary items to show off the suspension, but we haven't really carried that level of build to the interior of the vehicle as much. So with this build, we wanted to make sure we carried that custom awesomeness from the outside to the inside. To make that happen, since this was a basic SR5 to start with a small infotainment center, the cloth seats, and not a whole lot of amenities, we wanted to spruce this thing up and make it look like a higher trim level. So to make all this happen, we called our friends at Katzkin Leather. They sent us these awesome, super comfy seat covers to replace the factory cloth seats. Really nice stitch pattern, and again, much more comfortable than the factory cloth. And it had the small infotainment system, which worked fine from a functional standpoint, but it didn't look the high quality of the build. So we reached out to our friends at Dasaita, and this is an aftermarket head unit that looks incredibly factory, and it has full CarPlay functionality. It's all Android based, and I'm an iPhone user myself, and I was a little concerned that the Apple CarPlay wouldn't work on it, but it fires right up, connects, full functionality. Everything looks great, super high resolution screen. We're real excited about how this came out. Also, to further enhance the interior and the functionality, rather than having some clunky switch panel mounted somewhere on the dash or something like that to operate all of the off-road lights, we opted for the Switch Pro system and the SDHQ Switch Pro mount, which is a super nice 3D printed component up here, mounts the Switch Pro panel right up inside the factory headliner, I guess you could say. And so you've got full, easy access to all the buttons. So you can turn those lights on or off while you're driving without having to fumble around to try to find what you're looking for. And to protect the factory carpet, we partnered up with WeatherTech for these awesome floor mats and rear seat protectors. Since we're usually hauling a bunch of stuff in the back, or sometimes, you know, people or animals who take our dogs with us out on the trail and want to keep this Katzkin leather looking real nice. Then also, to further be able to communicate with the rest of our team while we're out on the trail, we installed a Rugged Radio's M1 race radio in this hideaway mount here on the inside of the center console. Keeps it tucked out of the way. Nice and easy to get to. When you need it, you can just reach in, change a channel, talk to the other guys out on the trail, or that race car that you're chasing through the desert. It makes it a lot easier for communication than some handheld radio that you got to fumble around or find some place to stick it so it doesn't fly up and hit you in the face when you're going over the bumps. So this all turned out super well. We're very impressed with all the quality of the products on the interior and couldn't be happier with how it turned out. Well, there you have it. Straight from the SEMA Show floor in Las Vegas, Nevada to Riverside, California in the Icon shop. We've been working hard at this thing for well over a month now. A lot of late nights and weekends, as we said before, but we're super impressed with how it came out. We wanted to go big with this one and show you what the great minds here at Icon can really put together from a complete vehicle package. And we wanted to go big. So from the motor upgrades, the suspension upgrades, wheels, tires, lights, Overland equipment, the interior, we really think we hit the nail on the head with this one. So make sure you tell us what you think. Follow along for more because we've got some testing scheduled here real soon. Once we get a few minor things buttoned up, got the motor all topped off with liquid Moly oils and additives. And pretty soon you're gonna see this thing flying at a high rate of speed through the desert. So until then, we'll see you next time.